Hello everyone, after much waiting, Mortenax Blade's kit is finally out. Is he a strong standalone unit, and can he save Acheron or maybe even Fei Xiao? Well, let's find out. Firstly, for Blade, we're actually in start of his ult, as it's what his kit revolves around. He now has the lowest ult cost in the game, sitting at just 80 energy, but being able to overflow to 160. Now this ult does a lot of different things. Firstly, it consumes 30% of his max HP to deploy a zone, which has a countdown of 70 just like Firefly. After which, it applies 2 debuffs, 30% defense rate and 50% vulnerability for 2 turns. Blade then enters his enhanced form, which grants him 20 crit rate and 60% crit damage. Here, Blade also cannot be killed, but rather he leaves his enhanced form while recovering 50% of his max HP, just like Mighty. But the most important thing is that he now gets access to his skill and also a new ult. Yes, Blade normally cannot use his skill outside of his enhanced state. Now, this ends up being Blade's biggest balancing factor, as he's forced to use a dookie basic attack when he's out of form. But we'll see how impactful this actually is a bit later. Now, instead of getting into the skill, let's instead look at the AMP of Blade's kit, that being Trace 3. Here, when Blade's in his enhanced state, he will give 50% damage bonus to all allies. But if there's another Nihility unit on the team, everyone gets an additional 50% ult damage bonus. But if not, it's 50% follow-up damage bonus. Just like Walt, he's going to be our third Nihility unit providing damage bonus. Speaking of, guys, my Walt theory video is looking pretty damn probable with this version of Blade's kit. But regardless, with his ult and Trace 3, we can now see how good he is in terms of amping. So to summarize, at E0S0, he can give up to 100 damage bonus, 30 defense rate, and also 50% vulnerability. As you can probably tell just by listening to that, it's a tad bit strong. So how strong is it actually though? Well, let's see by comparing him to some of the current popular or meta supports. As for the test, it's going to be AMP and Acheron, and assuming they're also the solo support. So starting with the Nihility units, they roughly range around the 50% AMP mark, with Welt reaching 75% due to his damage bonus and also defense rate. It's decent to say the least. Now, as you may have noticed, Xiao Chou's entire kit gives 50% vulnerability, while for Blade, he gives stat plus damage bonus and also defense rate. But how big is the actual difference though? Well, an E0S0 Blade would be a 142% AMP, which would be triple Cypher and Xiao Chou's. Now, you may be saying, well, it's because those two units actually suck. They're Nihility units and those guys got dookie amps. So let's instead compare to Tribby and Sparkle. Tribby is actually comparable to Xiao Chou and Cypher, while Nova Flare Sparkle is a 102% increase, which still gets mocked by version 1 Blade. And while we're at it, here's Asheville for comparison. Yep, it's even stronger than version 1 Asheville's AMP. With that in mind, he currently has the strongest AMPs in the game. But not only that, he's also the strongest main DPS and also sub DPS, and it's not by a little bit either. Now, I wonder where I've heard this before. So let's see why this is the case. Earlier, I stated that after Blade gets his ult, he now has access to a skill. This attack is an AoE and also bounce attack. Scaling wise, I'll be converting it into attack percent, but in a single target, it'll deal 336% attack MV, while in AoE, where Blade will shine, it goes up to 912% attack MV. In single target scenarios, it is pretty weak and equal to only a single Anaxa skill. However, in 4 to 5 target scenarios, he's now doing an entire Anaxa skill and a bit more. Now this is just really good and is not a problem. This is. Remember Blade's 80 cost ult? Well, after his enhanced form, he now has an attacking version which deals 300% HP to all targets. But let's convert it real quick. Much better. 600% attack to all enemies. So damage wise, we're ranging from 600% attack to 3000% MV. For reference, an entire Caster's Pollux has an 840 HP MV, or 1680 attack MV. So Blade's ult is just casually double a caster's nuke while only being at 80 energy. And remember, this is a sub DPS. Lastly, he does have a pseudo follow-up attack, which is just an extra skill cast. I'll talk about it a bit later, but for now, we're just gonna need its MV. And the reason why is so we can see his actual damage output. And to do so, we can just compare him to Ashvale, who most people at this point do accept that he is a meta unit. Now this will just be comparing MVs, but should be around the right ballpark. So in a 7-turn rotation, Ashvale, who can 2-turn ult, will be dealing around 7000% attack MV, which will be our baseline. Now Blade's realistic rotation has him doing roughly 57% of Ashvale's damage in a single target scenario. However, in 3-target, that jumps up to 124%. And lastly, in a 5-target scenario, we're now dealing nearly double Ashvale's damage. Yeah, this is insane. So with his personal damage and AMP comparison done, it's pretty safe to say that Blade is currently, unquestionably, the strongest and most versatile unit in the game right now. The difference between him and the other top tiers is legit so ludicrous that I just cannot see a world where he doesn't get nerfed. Even version 1 Ashvale, who everyone knew was completely broken, doesn't even hold a candle to version 1 Blade. Now, as mentioned earlier, he does have one flaw balancing his kit, and that's his ult downtime, which after his countdown is over, he'll get kicked out of his form and will have to build up his energy to transform again. But you see, because of his Trace 1, after he leaves his form, if his energy is below 50%, he'll get 50% energy. So, he basically only has a 1-turn cooldown before dishing out all that stupid damage again. His only weakness right now is completely negligible. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the numbers that I gave Blade wasn't even his full potential. With his current 80 cost ult, you'll easily be able to hit a 3-turn ult rotation. However, I do believe in the right scenarios, he can get 2 ults in 3 turns. At the moment, he can likely do 3 skills and 1 follow-up attack, which grants him 120 energy. So if we manage to squeeze in another ult somehow, it'll be a massive damage increase, seeing how his ult has the highest multipliers in the game right now. To hit this, you do need to be hit a lot, or have E2, which I believe makes it possible with an ER rope and the right teammates. Moving on, and to finish up with Blade though, we now have his talent. Here, when his zone is active, ally attacks will now generate charges, which after a total of 9, he'll do an extra skill, which is now also considered a follow-up attack, and this ends up adding a decent bit of MV to his rotations. Now, his talent also allows allies to apply the Balefire Bind debuff, so basically, we've just put E2 Silverwolf into Blade's base kit. And when we combine that with Trace 2, which now applies a stack after he gets hit, he now has E2 Silverwolf and also Jiaoqiu's entire gimmick in his base kit. So this basically solves all of Acheron's issues, and with Trace 2 also making him take aggro, he's also now the pseudo-sustain of the team. Yeah, Blade is currently so OP that putting him in tier 0 is just disrespectful. He's not just slightly better than the top tiers, he's far superior to everyone in 3 different roles, whilst being a pseudo-sustain and also having great synergy in quite a few teams. In my opinion, I think as a premise, it's good that he's strong, as he brings units like Acheron and Fei Xiao back in the spotlight. Now, here's the dilemma. A unit like Mort is exactly what someone like Acheron and Fei Xiao needed, massive amps and also disgusting damage. However, we're basically making all the other alternatives completely useless in a sense. Why would you ever pull someone like Jiaoqiu or Cypher when Blade triples their amp and also eclipses their damage? There's just no logical reason unless you just really like them. And this sucks because that's exactly what power creep is. Objectively, the new Elation path, while it is meta, it's not really power creep. They're at the top of the meta, yes, but it's actually units like Evernight, Ashvale, and now Blade who shattered the ceiling and also set a new baseline. And while that's in theory fine, the issue is that Hoyle then balances the endgame modes around these units via HP inflation, thus making old units not viable. These units who are saving some older units or archetypes are also simultaneously pushing power creep to an insane degree. I hope Hoyle can tune Blade to a point where he revives these older units without just completely breaking the game. And I honestly have zero idea how they can do it, but they need to get it right or else the game balance will just be completely cooked. And yeah, that's the entire video. I really do like Blade in his current kit, but the fact it puts FUA and Acheron to shame is just crazy work. As for the video, I'm sorry it's a bit more focused and lacking jokes here and there, but I couldn't really access any memes or agenda stuff as my internet has been dead for the entirety of making this video. Thankfully, I could still write my script, do math, and also edit whilst being offline. Now, if there's any discussion in the comments, just please be civil. Like for me, I've spoken my mind and shown my evidence on why I believe Blade should and likely will get nerfed. And if you don't agree, then that's perfectly fine. We're all free to have opinions. Besides that, y'all should totally watch my Welt theory video, which Blade kinda helps prove my theory, with Blade potentially being a Welt upgrade in an SP adventuring team. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace!